Hello everyone. In our last lesson, we've talked and learned about the three different time divisions called tense and each of their significance. You were also asked to copy down their different formulas under different forms of the time divisions or tense. Now, we shall focus on those formulas under different forms of present tense. So, let us begin. Alright, as you can see, this is a table for present tense formula under four different forms. Let us focus on simple present tense or present indefinite tense. Simple present or present indefinite tense. We all know that the formula for it is subject plus first form of the verb by adding s or es to the verb, which means that depending upon the subject, that is the doer of the action, we have to add an s or an es to a verb. But if we look closely at the table, we shall also see that some of the subjects have a verb es or s added to it. But we shall also see that some of the subjects with the verb does not have an s or es added to it. It means that if we were to use I, you, we, they, or plural nouns, the students is a plural noun. If we were to use those in a sentence or the equivalent of those, we need not add an es or an s to the verb. But if we were to use he, she, it, or a singular noun, that is John in the example, we have to add an s or an es or in some cases ies to the verb. This affirmative or positive form of the simple present tense shall be found in page 116 of our Junior English Grammar and Composition book. So I suggest if you have time, look into those pages and you shall also see three other forms under simple present tense. Simple present tense, formula kan siya chow angin, subject plus first form of the verb. Anila pon, verb 1 na kan, s amo es. Bel ania, helai a subject column hikan enswan, I. Ate, you, tite, we. They, tile, the students. The students tiki, plural noun ania. King ani chuan, verb pa hianin s amo es. Belangay lava. Ama erol su, he te, she te, it, ite, John. That is singular noun. Singular noun. Amo at lupui ho heng ho le. Tildang te po kan man chuanin verb pa es mo es te ies atang te pon chung chu kan bel angai chin ani. Our next column, that is the negative, which is also found in page 116. This is the second form of a simple present tense. If we look closely to the formula, there is a slight difference to the formula, which is subject plus do or does plus not plus first form of the verb. Main formula for simple present tense is subject plus verb 1 or first form of the verb by adding s or es to the verb. But if we were to write a sentence in a negative form, we have to put do or does and not in between the subject and the verb. And in the next column, we shall see that it is interrogative, which means to ask questions, also found in page 116. We see that to ask a question, In simple present tense form, do or does is added to the beginning of a sentence followed by a subject and a verb and an object with a question mark at the end. The last column is by combining the two negative and interrogative forms that it became negative interrogative, which means we shall combine the two forms, the first two columns, and we get negative interrogative. The formula is do or does plus subject plus not plus the first form of the verb and then an object and closing it with a question mark. If we look at the examples given, examples number 1 each, we have to use do with I. Alright? Do not use does with I or in the third sentences in each column, you, we, they, or plural nouns, we have to use the word do with a negative or an interrogative or a negative interrogative sentence. Do not use does. Does is only used with he, she, it, or singular noun. Do not forget that. If we use the word do with he, she, it, or singular noun, then our sentence is wrong. So, look at the examples very carefully. Column thum te kan en chuan ama saber column a chuan negative thil nilo ti te anilo ti zong kan soidon chuanin a formula hi tlemin a in thaka amaro chu a verb pakha adang lam chuang lawani. Subject le verb in kara khan do amo does le not ti kha kan da anga chumi chuanin negative form kha alo in siam donani. Chuan adot le a chuan interrogative zo na kan zo don chuan simple present tense form a chuan do amo does khanin sentence tira khanin kan ziak anga chumi zo a subject kan ziak lenga a verb kan ziak lenga chumi zo a thil ti tu engpo a thil ti kha kan ziak anga question mark zo na chin chiana kha kan da ngei turani chuan ato ber column hi kan en chuanin ahmasa column pahnih te in kop negative interrogative thil nilo amaro chu zo na ni tel si khami kan siam don ani chuan do le das khanin interrogative ami ang tho khanin a sentence tira khanin kan da anga chumi zo a chuanin subject a thil ti tu kha kan da lenga chumi zo a not low ti kha kan da lenga adota chuanin a thil ti a verb 1 first form of the verb kha kan da anga chuanin a thil ti a kha kan ziak lenga zo na chin chiana question mark khanin kha sentence kha kan khar ngei turani. Present continuous tense also have four forms found in page 118 and 119 of our grammar and composition textbook. If we look at the second column, that is the affirmative column, we see the formula for present continuous tense, which is subject plus is, am, are plus verb 1 by adding ing to the verb. If we cross look at the first column, that is the subject column, we can see the use of the words is, am, are with the subject, which is am is only used with I. Alright, do not forget that. He, she, or it, and John, which is the singular noun, uses is. Alright, which means is only used with he, she, it, or singular noun, that is John, for example. And in the third column, or the third row, are is only used with you, we, they, or plural noun. Alright? Do not forget that. And in the last column, we shall see the negative form, that is subject plus is am/are plus the word not. In any negative form, we have to add the word not in between the verb and the is am/are. Alright? So, if we cross-look at the subject and the negative form, we shall see how the sentence is formed, which is I am not writing a letter. And he, she, it, or John, which is the singular noun, is not writing a letter. The last row, you, we, they, or the students, which is the plural noun, are not writing a letter. Simple present tense ang bookin present continuous tense tuan. Form palinea, affirmative column kan en tuanin continuous, present continuous tense. Formula ka inzia ka, subject da is, am, amo, are. Ka kanda nga tumido ta verb ka ing kandela nga. Tuan, heng is, am, are man natitu as subject column hi kan en tuanin at siyang em, am. Tuan am kan man don tuanin I. So, hiyanin am kan mang tur ni. Is kan mang don ni tuan he, she, it, amo, John. Te singular noun te kan mang ring don ani ring tuan is kan mang tur ni tin are. Man su you, we, they te plural noun ring are kan mang tur ni Negative column kan en tuan subject plus is, am, or are plus not kan telo chuanin negative form ani lo tik siya turani. So ta chuanin mami affirmative ang bookin is, am, are man na chu siang na inzia ka chuwang chuan thengilo turani. The last two form of present continuous tense, that is interrogative and negative interrogative. So the formula is, we have to start the sentence with is, am, are plus the subject plus verb plus ing. And the negative interrogative formula is, am, are plus subject plus not plus verb 1 plus ing. In any interrogative form, we have to start the sentence with the word either is, am, or are, followed by the subject and the word not and the verb by adding ing to it and the object, and closing that sentence with a question mark. So, it means that the same rule applies as to when we should use is, am, are, but the sentence structure changes, which means that is, am, are put at the beginning of the sentence. Interrogative le negative interrogative formula kan en suanin is, am, are kanin sentence ma aswaya nga sentence tira kanda nga tumidota tuan subject in at sunzo mga tumidota a verb pa ing kanda le nga tuan tumidnuwa tuanin atil ti tuar tu object kan ti chin ka kami ka kan ziak le nga tuanin zo na chin siya na question mark kanin kan karnge ngay turani am kan so ito ang kan aya tuan am man turani am tia hi aya man turani tin he, she, it, amo singular noun dite example John kan mga tiang kan mang do na ni tuan tin adang tipo kan mang do na ni tuanin is kan mang turani tin are man na chu kan so ito ang kan you, we, they te plural noun kan mang don ring ani chuan are kan mang turani tin negative interrogative question sentence kan siam don ani chuan not ti kha verb ma chi kanin kan da nga subject nen kanin anin kara a don tinani chu. Present perfect tense. Just like the first two forms of present tense, this form also have four forms under it, found in page 121 and 122 of our grammar and composition textbook. If we focus on the affirmative column, we shall see the formula of present perfect tense, which is subject plus has or have plus verb 3 or third form of the verb. Now, if we cross-look at the subject column and the affirmative column, we shall see the uses of has or have to a subject. Have is used with I, and the last row, you, we, they, or plural nouns, or in the example given, the students. And has is only used with he, she, it, and singular noun, or in the example given, John. So do not get confused. Have is used with I, you, we, they, or plural noun, and has is used with he, she, it, or singular noun. Now, if we look at the last column, that is the negative column, we see that the formula is subject plus has or have plus the word not plus third form of the verb. We've already know where we should use the word has or have, but we have to add the word not after the words has or have. Present perfect tense affirmative column contains one subject plus has or have plus verb 3 dini chuanin a subject column first column contains chuanin has le have man tur chiang de bina in zia ka have have man na tur te chu you we they le plural nouns te le I so have man tur ni tin has kan mang don ani chuan he she it amo he she it le singular noun kan ziak don ani chuan has kan mang tur ani chuan chumi omzia chuanin heta negative po khanin kharul tho kha kan mang tur ani amaro chu not not ki has amo have kan man a subject zira has amo have kan man hun adot si khanin verb 3 ma khanin not kakanda ngai ni. The last two forms, that is interrogative and negative interrogative. So, just like the interrogative and negative interrogative forms before, has or have must be put at the beginning of a sentence, followed by the subject and the word and the verb 3, which is the third form of the verb, followed by the object and closing it with the question mark sign, which also applies to the negative interrogative forms, but we have to add the word not in between the subject and the verb. Interrogative le negative interrogative po has le have tehi sentence in channan kan mga tumizo chuanin subject in azuya interrogative bika a column lo en ula verb 3 third form of the verb ka kan ziak le nga tumizo atil ti tuar tu kan ti chin object kan azuya tin zona chin sia na question mark kanin kan thar nge turani tin ama heta negative interrogative khachuanin has amo have kan man zoa khanin subject kan zia kanga subject zoa khan not ti kha kan ziak nge turani tumidota verb 3 kan ziak lenga object kan ziak lenga zona chin sia na question mark ka da the ni lo tur zona ani reng rengin question mark ka da the ni lo tur ani ama kan soi tu ang khanin aya chuan have kan hmanga he te she it ti te singular noun ti a te amo example anga example itar na chuan John kan hmangta khang kan hmang don ani chuan amo atlupui te le thil dang example dang te po an tlupui ani chuan kan hmang don ani chuan has kan hman anga ya tin you we they ti te plural noun amo hey example inziaka chuanin the students ti kan hmanga khi nga mo atlupui te kan hmang ani chuanin have ti hi kan hmang nge nge turani. The last form of present tense, which is present perfect continuous tense, also have four forms found in page 124 and 125. If we look at the affirmative column, we shall see that the formula is subject plus has or have plus been plus verb 1 plus ing. If we look closely, comparing it to present perfect tense and present perfect continuous tense, we see that the difference lies in the word been and the verb. In this form of tense, been is added in between the has or the have and the verb, and an ing is added to the first form of the verb. And if we cross-look at the subject column and the affirmative column, we see the uses of has or have plus been, and the verb plus ing is all the same. So, if we were to use I in a sentence, we have to use the word have been. And if we were to use he, she, it, or singular noun, or in this case, John, we have to use the words has been and the verb plus ing. And if we were to use you, we, they, or plural nouns, we have to use the word have been as well as first form of the verb plus ing. Now, if we look at the negative form, the formula is subject plus has or have plus not plus been plus verb 1 plus ing. If we look closely, we shall see the difference because in between has or have and been, the word not, which is a sign of negative in a sentence, is placed there. So if we cross-look at the subject column and the negative column, we see that the use of have or has plus not plus been is clearly written. If we were to use I in the negative form, in the present perfect continuous tense, we have to use have not been. And if we were to use he, she, it, or singular noun or John, in the negative form, we have to use the word has not been. And if we were to use you, we, they, or plural noun in the negative form in perfect continuous tense, in the present tense form, we have to use the word have not been, followed by verb 1 plus ing. So, do not get confused between the two affirmative and the negative form of present perfect continuous tense. Present perfect continuous tense are affirmative kan ensuan subject that has amo have le been kan bela tin verb pa ing kan bela suta chuanin perfect continuous tense ka kan siam do na ni chuan I the word kan hmang do na ni chuan have been kan hmanangaya tin he she it amo singular noun kan hmang do na ni chuan has been kan hmanangaya tin you we they amo plural noun kan mang don ni chuan have been kan mang na nga kan man na nga ya tin negative form low ti mo ani low ti kan soi don ani chuanin subject plus has or have plus not a inzia ki plus been plus verb 1 plus ing ani a chuta chuan has amo have man na kan siya to a not tiki been le have in kara kanda nge tur ni a negative form a present perfect continuous a negative form a kan zia don chuan have le been ben in kara not tiki kan zia nge yang ni. The last forms in present perfect continuous tense are interrogative and negative interrogative forms. In interrogative column, we see the formula as has or have plus subject plus been plus verb 1 plus ing and closing that with a question mark. And in interrogative, negative interrogative form, the formula is has or have plus subject plus not plus been plus verb 1 plus ing, closing that with a question mark. We see in both forms that has or have are used to start a question depending upon the subject, because we already know the uses of has or have depending upon the subject. Have is used with I, you, we, they, or plural noun, and has is used with he, she, it, and singular noun. We should remember that question mark is absolutely necessary when we are writing an interrogative or a negative interrogative sentence. If we look closely in the negative interrogative sentence, the first sentence, have I not been writing, and it is put dash, we can put any form of object, any object that we want. This is just an example. Present perfect continuous tense, a form to berte padni. Interrogative la negative interrogative, a formula kan ends one. Interrogative ringotats one, has or have plus subject plus been plus verb 1 plus ing le zona sinsiana question mark kanin a inkara. Then negative interrogative form of it one, has, have plus subject plus not kanda nga negative sinsiana anita le been plus verb 1 plus ing tin question mark kanda turuni. Has le have aman natikan suito a interrogative le negative interrogative at one, has amo have then sentence atchanan sentence in channa kanda angatin subject in atsun so mga chuan interrogative ringot ni chuan been kanda nga verb 1 plus ing plus object plus question mark anya nga negative interrogative at chuan have amo has dota subject kanda nga not been tiki negative interrogative negative form ani chuan not da tu kan ti to kha tin verb 1 plus ing plus question mark tika kanda nge turani.